Hello everyone, I'm Jack Fisher and welcome to my world. And January 10th, 2024 may very well go down as a day that Spider-Man fans, new, old, and everything in between, will cherish for many years to come. Because on this fateful day, Ultimate Spider-Man #1 by Jonathan Hickman and Marco Checchetto was released. And while there are very few certainties in anything in life, including superhero comics, I strongly believe that Ultimate Spider-Man #1 will go down as one of the most important comics that Marvel has ever published. It definitely had a high bar to clear. The first iteration of Ultimate Spider-Man by Brian Michael Bendis was beloved and cherished for a reason. But this new Ultimate Spider-Man within this new Ultimate Universe, it may end up being even more impactful. Marvel had already announced that this version of Ultimate Spider-Man would be very different, both from its predecessor and its mainline 616 counterpart. This series would not follow a teenage Peter Parker struggling to balance high school with being a superhero. It also wouldn't follow a perpetually down on his luck 20-something Peter Parker struggling to balance his personal life with his superhero life. No, this version of Spider-Man is already married to Mary Jane Watson. They have 2 adorable children together. And due to the events of Ultimate Invasion, Peter never became Spider-Man in this universe. So what would happen if Peter became Spider-Man at this later point in his life? What kind of Spider-Man would he be? It promised to be a very different but very refreshing take, one that would stand in stark contrast to the constantly stagnating Spider-Man from the mainline comics. And as someone who has been regularly frustrated by Spider-Man comics for years, the premise of this new Ultimate Spider-Man had so much potential. And after finally reading this issue, I can safely say it delivered more than I ever could have hoped for. Now, if you don't want to be spoiled, here's your final warning. And while I always encourage others to check these comics out for themselves, that goes double for this issue because Ultimate Spider-Man #1 presents us with a unique world, and that world is very much in need of a unique Spider-Man. But before we ever meet Spider-Man, we meet this new version of Peter Parker. He's no nerdy kid or hapless young adult. He's just a middle-aged man, living a good life with his wife, Mary Jane, and their 2 kids, Richard and May. But even within this less chaotic life, it's clear that something is bothering Peter, and it's not your typical midlife crisis. Now, there are some clues and hints, but there are also other issues going on in this world. This leads us right into Peter's job. Yes, he still works at the Daily Bugle in this universe, but no, it's not as a photographer. Yes, J. Jonah Jameson is still there, and he's still the same loud blowhard he is in every universe. But for once, he is not directing that towards Peter. There's even some tongue-in-cheek teasing here, as if to acknowledge how overdone that trope is with Jameson. But it leads directly into another unique twist of this new Ultimate Universe. Peter's Uncle Ben is still alive. And on top of that, he's Jameson's partner at the Daily Bugle. And beyond Ben just being alive for once, this is quite a change from his usual narrative. But the interplay between Ben Parker and J. Jonah Jameson is oddly endearing here. There's a sense that these men are similar in principles, but different in terms of personality. It's a dynamic that manifests in a variety of ways throughout the issue, but it does make one thing clear. These men respect each other a great deal. They also respect each other's families. Jameson even seems to have a soft spot for Peter. Seeing them interact hints at larger issues, but it also helps tie things directly into the larger events of this Ultimate Universe. At the end of Ultimate Universe #1, we saw a young Tony Stark team up with Thor, Reed Richards, and Lady Sif to undo all the Maker's machinations. However, those who benefited from the world that the Maker created were not so eager to see it change. So they staged this massive terror attack in New York City using one of Stark's satellites, and they made it so Tony Stark was blamed. Beyond just being a horrifying tactic, a lot of innocent people died as a result. And one of them was May Parker, Peter's beloved aunt and Ben's wife. It sets up this powerful moment where Peter, Mary Jane, their kids, and Ben attend a memorial service. There's even a version of Matt Murdock giving this service, who appears to be a priest in this universe. Now that in and of itself raises all sorts of questions, but this movie does plenty more to drop other hints at just how different this new Ultimate Universe is. It even gives us our first glimpse of Harry Osborn, whose parents, Norman and Emily, also died in the attack. And his speech is revealing, to say the least. In any Marvel universe, Harry Osborn has always had his share of issues, and they definitely show here. He is clearly not dealing with this loss nearly as well as Peter or Ben. But overall, it perfectly ties the events of the previous Ultimate Comics into this issue. Jonathan Hickman has always been keen on world building and connections. This issue certainly has that. And before more of those connections manifest, we see some more upheavals at the Daily Bugle. Upheavals that bring out the best and worst of J. Jonah Jameson. He finds out that the paper is being taken over by Wilson Fisk. And in most Marvel universes, that's never a good thing. And rather than run the Bugle Fisk's way, Jameson decides to quit on the spot. It's a not too surprising spectacle from Jameson, but it also directly leads to a different kind of spectacle, one that involves a direct attack on Fisk by a figure resembling the Green Goblin. We don't know all the details. We only know that Harry Osborn did not carry himself in a very healthy manner at the memorial service. But then again, that's still no guarantee that this Green Goblin is him. So many things are different in this new Ultimate Universe. We really can't assume anything, which I feel only adds to the intrigue. Now that's a mystery that remains unsolved in this issue, but it also sets up plenty of other plots along the way. Jameson and Ben meet later on to discuss their future. They seem to know that any media outlet run by Wilson Fisk will play fast and loose with the truth. And we, the readers, already know that that's an entirely reasonable concern. We saw in previous issues how much the media is controlled by the people the Maker empowered. They've already labeled Tony Stark a terrorist. That implies that truth in this new Ultimate Universe is going to be a lot more critical than usual. And even if Ben and Jameson don't understand that, you just know they're going to become bigger targets. And remember, this is a universe without Spider-Man. This is also a world without the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, or the X-Men. That just compounds the danger they're facing, and it reinforces what previous Ultimate issues already have. This universe needs its heroes. It needs someone like Spider-Man. That brings us back to Peter Parker, who is still going through this strange personal crisis. He confides in his Uncle Ben. He also confides in Mary Jane. He really does think there's something wrong with him. Even if he has a great family and a good life overall, he feels this emptiness inside him, like he's not doing something that he should be doing. It really is a powerful moment, but it's also a moment that establishes an important dynamic in this universe. Peter has some very supportive loved ones. His uncle encourages him, his wife supports and loves him, and he loves her just as much. Mary Jane is not part of this problem he's dealing with. And after over a decade of contrived melodrama in the mainline Spider-Man comics, I feel like this is so refreshing. Because ever since the infamous One More Day story, Marvel has made every excuse to keep Peter and Mary Jane apart, undoing their marriage, breaking them up for contrived reasons, and never letting them just be a mature, loving couple. Well, we get all of that in this one issue. We get a great example of just how great Peter and Mary Jane can be when they're just allowed to be together and have a family. As a comic book fan and a romance fan, I cannot put into words how satisfying this was to see. But it was still only the second most satisfying moment of this issue, because once Peter has Mary Jane's blessing, we learn what is likely the source of this midlife crisis he's going through. On the previous night, Peter got an unexpected message from Tony Stark. It came in the form of this flashy hologram from 6 months in the future. Apparently, he and the rest of the Avengers escaped the attack. He's still trying to reassemble the heroes of this world. He then reveals to Peter that he was supposed to be bitten by a radioactive spider 20 years ago. He was supposed to become one of this world's most prominent heroes. And if this world is to be free of the Maker's influence, it needs its heroes back. So he presents Peter with this metal orb, which we saw his daughter playing with earlier in the issue. Tony reveals that it contains both the spider that was supposed to bite him and a high-tech suit. This means that Peter has a choice to become that hero again. But unlike so many other stories involving Spider-Man's origin, he can become this hero by choice. And that, more than anything, is what makes this such a powerful issue. It gives Peter Parker a level of agency he's never really had in becoming Spider-Man. He's told outright that this was supposed to happen, and someone who did not belong in this universe stopped it. Now, he has an opportunity to become Spider-Man without an accident, without a tragedy. He still has his Uncle Ben, but he already lost his Aunt May. He was powerless to do anything about that. But moreover, nobody really had any power to do anything to prevent that kind of tragedy. The Maker made sure there were no heroes around to save those lives. So Peter Parker now gets a chance to be that hero on his own terms. And he ultimately chooses to take it. Not gonna lie, when I saw this moment unfold, I wanted to cheer Peter on, something that has been very difficult to do in the mainline comics. It sets Spider-Man up to be a hero in this universe in a way that's very different, but wonderfully appropriate. It truly is a new world, a new Peter Parker, and a new Spider-Man. And it all comes together in a way that's just, well, amazing if that's not too loaded a word these days. There's so much more I can say about this issue. I imagine Ultimate Spider-Man #1 will be a comic that generates a lot of discussion among Spider-Man fans, but for all the right reasons. For a character as iconic as Spider-Man and one that's subject to so much frustrating baggage, this issue really was an incredible achievement. I really do feel like this is the Spider-Man that the world needs right now, for this new Ultimate Universe, as well as for a new generation of fans. There's still plenty to build on and explore. Between Peter and Mary Jane's kids, his Uncle Ben being alive, and a new Green Goblin, a new foundation for Ultimate Spider-Man has been crafted in Ultimate Spider-Man #1. And I am really looking forward to seeing what ultimately comes of it. Thanks for watching, everyone, and thanks for joining me in my world. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and until next time, take care and stay safe.